One of the biggest mistakes, I still hear it today from young people, oh, I don't have to worry because I'm still
young.
Yeah, and that is death to most people, because eventually you get old and then you're not young again. So it's a way of saying, when I talk about assets and liabilities, one of the most important things you have in your life is time. It's one of your greatest assets, or it's your liability. And being, I just turned 70, and I have friends who have nothing. I mean, they have zero. Now they've made a lot of money, but they have nothing here. They have nice houses, nice cars, 16 wives, 19 kids. I don't know what they have, but you know what I mean? And being young is great, except it can be a liability to you. Because when you're young, you're just having a lot of fun and life's exciting, it's new. So, as a time. But the thing is, this is the lesson today, is so many people spend their time focusing here. They want to make a lot of money. And I can hear it in their words. They say, oh, I want a career. This is career. Okay, or I'm going to start my own business. And this is the chart here, which we've seen. This is the cash flow quadrant, book number 2. E is employee. S is small business, self-employed, or a specialist like a doctor, a lawyer, web designer. B is big business, 500 employees or more. And I is professional investor. So when I was your age, I knew I wanted to get here. This takes time. This is the hardest, This is where the big mega bucks are. And Kim and I are here. And the money is massive. But it takes time to get there. The big mistake I see young people make is they focus here. And the words are, I want to do what I love. That's the track. You see, in real life, sometimes you have to do what you hate. Like, people think I like to write books. I hate writing books. But it fills my purpose in life. It's not my passion, my purpose in life. Because my purpose was to get here. A lot of these guys get trapped here doing what they love. And as we've talked about on earlier episodes of this thing, these guys pay the highest taxes. 40% here, 60% in taxes here, 20% here, and then 0% here. So when I was before my 20s, I knew I wanted to go there, and it wasn't doing what I loved. I had to learn what I didn't want to learn. I had sometimes to do what I hated. I had to learn about taxes. I had to learn about debt. I had to take classes. I had to learn about insurance. So I was doing a lot of things I hated doing so I could come over here. These guys never do this because they live their passion. I want my passion. The difference in passion is greedy. Purpose is for other people. So my purpose was to come over here so I could serve more people. Okay. So I have employees here and all this. I don't buy stocks, bonds, mutual funds, because as a professional investor, I can create my own assets. There are many, many people who always tell you, live below your means. Well, that's not a rich dad philosophy either. I think if you live below your means, and especially if you're poor already, you live below the means, your spirit dies. So what the Rich Dad Company is really about is how do you improve your spirit by increasing your financial intelligence or your financial IQ. Instead of living below my means, or what most people have as a job, a job, you can only work so hard. So my goal, my wife's goal every single year is we increase our assets. So we buy more rental property, we invest in oil, gold, stocks that pay dividends and all this. So every year, our income or our cash flow keeps increasing. Every year. Our goal is not to get a higher paying job. Our goal is to keep increasing our assets. We want you to have all the wonderful things this world has to offer. So that's one of the differences between don't live below your means. We used to say, what we say at Rich Dad is increase your means and you can have anything you like. And that's what makes the Rich Dad Company's philosophy a little different than the rest. Most people go to school to become employees. It stands for E, employee. or they become specialists like social media guys. But where a rich dad is different is that this is what you go to school for, become doctors or lawyers or accountants or pizza shop owners. But this is the B and the I side. This is big business, and this is professional investor. Not stocks, not mutual funds, not ETFs, not 401ks, not that stuff. Professional investor. So the problem with most millennials, they went to school and they came out here, right?
That's correct, yeah.
That's the problem. What Rich Dad does was shift you to think on this side. So the B and the I side, 500 employees or more, and professional investor, you want 401ks and stuff, that's on this side. But you have the power with this thing to go over here. So my whole message is this, and this is all from my Rich Dad. This is called the BI triangle, B and I. To be a big business owner and investor, there's 8 steps to it. Number 1, you have to have a mission statement for your company. Number 2, you got to have a team. Number 3, you have to have leadership. And now then you have product. Everybody says, oh, I got a great product. Well, product is the least important thing. Then you have to have legal. You know, you have to patent all those contracts. Systems. You know, a car, an automobile is a system of systems. A computer is a system of systems. The human body is a system of systems. That's why you have a good team. You have the communication. This is the most powerful communication device ever. You know, but most people use it to text and complain.
Yeah, and check their social media accounts.
Yeah, I mean, grow up, you guys. And then here we have cash flow. You know, cash is either flowing in or flowing out. And this is leadership. So Shane is over here on the leadership side. He coordinates all these people with this thing. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
So you have the most powerful tool in history. Irony is, you know, when I left school in the 60s, there was plenty of jobs. But the world has changed.
Yeah.
And our schools haven't. And so they're still making this innate promise of get a job. And I was very fortunate when I graduated in '69. We're the highest paid graduates in the world. My classmates were making about $120,000 to $150,000 a year. Wow. That's not much money today. But 1969, that was a lot of money. But naturally, as young guys do, we spent every penny of it.
Yeah.
So I had my Rich Dad's lesson, the rich don't work for money, in my head. I said, okay, I'm making all this money. I have a secure job. But what's beyond that? And that's where education comes in. So if I could explain this to you for the rest of the millennial lessons, it's really going to be on this theme here. Because financial education is about not working for money. Mm-hmm. Like one of the first questions, when I finally realized what my Rich Dad was saying, I said, well, when do I never need a paycheck again? See, my goal wasn't, you know, go to the moon or, you know, cure cancer. My job was, when would I never need a paycheck again? Because as long as you need a paycheck, be it from an employer or like my poor dad, he was so afraid of losing his government pension.
Yeah.
And I'm going, Jesus, what a way to run your life. Your pension? Mm-hmm. So my old man kind of got fired. He lost his pension. It was the most frightening thing in the world to him. He had no pension. Then it was Social Security, which is even worse.
Yeah.
So that's why my goal when I was about your age, a little older, around 25, I said, my goal is to never need a paycheck again from anybody, even the government. I don't want any Medicare, Social Security, or whatever. You know, when I was a military pilot, I said, oh, you got to get the military pilot pension. I said, you do, but I'm not going to. And just because of this here, that was the difference. Because I never wanted to work for money to need a paycheck. So the next few lessons in Millennial Money, you'll find out what I do work for. So for right now, just let me go to the lesson here. So this comes from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and these are some of the distinctions. It was the advantage I had at age 9, because I knew what I wanted to work for. And this here, in simple terms, is called a financial statement. In school, they teach you to get a FICO score. Mm-hmm. FICO is BS. All it means, how good are you paying your bills? That's all FICO means, okay? Should be the FIDO score. Good dog. So this is what your banker wants to see. So when I was 9 years old, playing Monopoly with my rich dad, this is the lesson that's not included in Monopoly, but rich dad taught me. And fundamentally, the problem that most people make, they go to school to get a job, and they work here. So this is the poor, middle class, and these guys. And we're going to talk about later, your first line item expense is taxes. You know, just recently, President Trump said he had a tax cut. He didn't have a tax cut for these guys. As you know, the rules are always written for the rich, okay? I didn't make the rules. You can get angry at me, but these are the rules. The rich make the rules, the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules.
Yeah.
So the tax cut went to people here. That's where it goes to. You'll learn more about this later on. But this is what I work for. So what I work for, number one, is I'm an entrepreneur. I want businesses. I have multiple businesses. And I don't work in them, as you know, because you work here. You never see me, do you?
No.
Because I don't work for a paycheck.
Exactly.
Next is real estate. And real estate is good for many things which we'll go into, but number one is debt. I use a lot of debt to buy real estate, and I pay no taxes. That's the relationship there. The next is paper. And that's savings, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, and that stuff. I don't have any of that stuff. I don't save money. I don't have any of that. But this is what most people have, go to school, get a job, get a 401k, and save money. Loser. Okay. I'm doing that just to upset you guys, because maybe you'll start to think. Because I didn't make the rules. I'm just telling you these are the rules. These people pay the highest taxes, and they work the hardest. And the last are commodities, 4 different asset classes. So commodities are, number one is gold, silver, oil, land, water, food. So this is what I work for. When I left school, rather than working for a paycheck and working for money, my education had to go beyond getting a job, which I had a good job. But I now had to start, when I left school, about your age, the thing I focused on first actually was commodities. So back in 1972, I started buying gold. And it was illegal for Americans to own gold. Can you imagine that? Wow. Back in 72. Today you have Bitcoin. It's different, okay? Everything is changing so rapidly today. So I started with gold, but actually the next thing was actually oil, because I went to school to be a tanker officer driving ships for Standard Oil. So I understand oil. So my wife and I don't own Standard Oil or Chevron or Exxon. We own oil wells. Again, taxes. You get no tax breaks for owning paper oil, huge tax breaks for owning real oil.
Yeah.
And then I went into real estate. Why? Because I can use debt to buy real estate. And because I use debt, I pay no taxes. And then third, I started my business, my first real business. I had many businesses as a kid, but my first real business was a nylon and Velcro surfer wallet business. And I went worldwide right away. The trouble is I was an idiot, and the business went up, and the business came down. What kept me alive was this and this. Okay. So you may say, well, aren't you working for money? But we'll go into that next. I don't want what's called a paycheck. I want cash flow. From here. So that's what I mean by the rich don't work for money. You want cash flow that pays very little taxes, and I can use lots of debt over here. The average person who went to school, their biggest liability they have is student loans, of course.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
I mean, it's horrible what they do to you guys today. You have student loan, which is the worst type of debt of all, because you cannot declare bankruptcy on it. No. And then you get out and you try and buy a house, and you call it an asset when it's really a liability. Why? Because the cash is flowing that way. Your house costs you money you rent a house, it still costs you money. Okay? Then you have to have a nice car. I had one of those. This. So the problem with most young people is they go to school to get that job, then a lot of them have student loan debt, then they try and get married and buy a house, have a car, and then they have credit card debt, but they never have the chance to come over here. If they do any investing in America, it's a 401k, which I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Now, you should, but I don't, because I don't have to. Because I went to school for here, and people who don't go to school should be here. This is a 401k, IRA, ETFs, and that stuff, paper, savings. I don't touch that stuff, and we'll go into that later on. Yeah. Okay. So when I say rich don't work for money, I never wanted to be dependent on a paycheck, either from an employer or the government. I wanted to be a free human being. That was one of the biggest wake-up calls of my life, is that the reason between rich people and poor people is they don't know real money from fake money. My mom and dad didn't. Good people, but they don't know that. So they spent it. And so today, I have millions and millions and millions in gold and silver. And I also use debt. I don't use money. And guys like Dave Ramsey say live debt-free. And for 99% of the people, that's good advice. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to be really rich, you have to learn how to use debt as money. But to do that, you've got to be a lot smarter than some hodler, chasing Ethereum and all the other stuff. Okay? So that's what real financial education. I don't have an answer. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Could my Bitcoin go to zero? Yes. But gold and silver have been here since the earth was formed. It's been gold, it's been money for about 12,000 years. Bitcoin has been money for 10. Now, does that mean I don't buy Bitcoin? No, I still will buy it, but I'll buy it because it's liquid. I can get out of it if I made a mistake. In my world, like I said, I see people, they chase shiny objects. And what a shiny object means is, when you're fishing, you throw a lure out, this little shiny object goes, and the fish comes and they jump in. That's what most people do. Bitcoin today is a shiny object. I'm not saying you can't make a lot of money in it, but most people are chasing shiny objects. They want to make money. They're not building an asset here. The reason they don't do it here, this is the highest risk. Now, this is what I know. The higher the risk, the more education it takes. For example, if I wanted to learn, and I flew, if I wanted to just fly my little Cessna 172 around the place, not much risk in that. But when I had to go to Vietnam to fly, the risk went up. I had to study harder, become better, work harder at it. The reason most people stay in paper, 401ks, IRAs, and chasing shiny objects like Bitcoin is because they don't want to take the risk here. They're huge. You've got to study. That's why we have Rich Dad's Education, Rich Dad's Coaching. All of you guys are allowed to take courses and all this. If you come here, it takes no intelligence to be here. It takes no intelligence to buy Bitcoin. I mean, I have 5 Bitcoin. It didn't take, I don't have to do anything. Over here, I have to know a lot. Over here, I have to know a lot. I have to study. So if you want to chase shiny objects like the stock market and all that, you can get rich there. It's really easy to get in here. It's really hard here. Any comments, any questions? Does it make sense? They're chasing shiny objects.
So I do agree with you when you talk about Bitcoin being a shiny object that everybody's chasing, right? And one of my favorite stories that you've told is about your mentor, Frank, when he sent you to Peru so you could learn a valuable lesson about maybe something that wasn't such a shiny object and turned into be, because shiny objects change every day.
So I wanted to learn about, they have ICOs, initial coin offerings. I wanted to learn about IPOs, initial public offering. And it's how you take a business and turn it into paper. You turn it into stock. So I went to see my friend Frank, who was hardcore here. I don't know how many companies he started and taken public. And I said, Frank, and he didn't know me from Adam. I said, I want to learn to do an IPO. And he goes, yeah, you and everybody else. He says, most guys don't have it. They don't have the guts. They don't have the determination. And they're wimps. I said, I want to learn. He says, how bad? This is up here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I said, badly. He says, okay, this is Wednesday. Be in Lima, Peru on Saturday. I went, on Saturday? And we were shooting our video for the cash flow game, He says, how bad do you want it? I said, badly. He says, you meet my president in Lima. Frank never traveled. You meet my president in Lima, and I'll find out how bad you want it. So that was Wednesday. Wednesday night, I was on a plane to Lima, Peru. I had to pay full boat. I paid my own way. Most employees can't stand that because they don't have any money. I flew into Lima, Peru. I went to look at 3 gold mines, and with Frank's president. It was an experience and an education I would never have if I didn't show up. It cost me probably $15,000 to $20,000 just for airfare on that thing. I get back on Tuesday to talk to Frank, and I said, Frank, there's nothing there. He says, I could have told you that. So why'd you send me? I want to find how badly you want to learn. Just most people don't have it. They want a job, they want job security, they want a paycheck, they want a 401k. And that's why they don't get to come here. That's why they don't get to come over here. Nothing right or wrong, I don't ever want to be here. I knew when I was your age I wanted to come here, but the higher the risk, the higher the returns, but also the higher dedication, education, and study you have to go through. So today, and I'm making millions and millions, I make more in a day than many people make in a lifetime. But it was worth it. Did I lose? Sometimes, yes, but it was worth it. You go to school here, you take no risk. That's why my poor dad was poor. He didn't like to make mistakes.
What would financial education in school look like for you? What would you like to have learned?
Well, it was really simple because my poor dad, I finally bugged him enough, I said, well, when am I going to learn about money? He said, why don't you ask your best friend's father, my classmate? And that was Mike in the book. I had to change his name because the family doesn't want to be known.
Of course.
And I said, why does Mike's father know about money? My poor dad said, because he's an entrepreneur. I went, what's that? And what are you? He says, I'm an employee. I'm only 9 years old. I'm learning 2 new words, employee and entrepreneur. I went, what? What's the difference, And then my poor dad says, well, an entrepreneur must know about money. An entrepreneur must speak the language of money. I went, what? And then my poor dad says, I said, what are you? He says, I'm a school teacher. I'm an employee. And what about you? Why don't you have to learn to speak about money? He says, because all I want is a paycheck and a pension, paychecks and pensions. So that's kind of I'm 9 years old. I am totally confused now. So I go across town. It's a little dinky little sugar plantation town. Like I said, my classmates owned the plantations, and the kids across the street at Union School, all union members, they worked for the plantations. And my other, so I'm going, I'm poor. So I sit down with my rich dad, who never went to school, ironically, and he wouldn't teach me about money either. And he kept rejecting me. I didn't realize it was part of the process. He wanted to find out how badly I wanted to learn. And he says, and as we all know as entrepreneurs, right, salesmanship begins when the customer says no. And so the more he said no, the more I got I said, well, and so I kept, going back to talk to him and all. He says, get out of here, kid. So that was test number 1 from my rich dad. Test number 2 was as if I teach you, you have to work for me for free. And I said, why for free? He says, because if I pay you, you'll think like your dad, poor dad. The rich don't work for money. So if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is right there, the rich don't work for money. And then I'm now all confused as a 9-year-old kid. And so that's when the whole thing started about financial education.
The difference is when I left my high pay, so I got a job with Xerox. So that's the last job I ever had. So when you look at the cash flow quadrant here, ESBI, here I was, okay? And I was making a lot of money at Xerox.
Yeah.
I went to Xerox for one thing, not the money. I worked at Xerox because I had to learn how to sell. Because entrepreneurs have to learn how to sell. So I was preparing for this quadrant here.
Yeah.
But I was really preparing for the big business quadrant. So I took a job at Xerox for 4 years. So I was preparing for these 2 quadrants here. So when I talk to young people like you're here in social media, you're learning the same thing I was learning at Xerox, except you're learning technology-wise.
Yeah.
It's very smart.
100%. That's exactly
Right.
what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
And one thing I actually really do appreciate when I worked at the bank was that we were very sales orientated, and that's all that mattered. And I think that's where I got a lot of my sales skills too from.
Correct.
Like
Talking
it
to
was
people.
learning how to get rejected and
Yeah.
finding a way to not get rejected
Good.
next time.
Good. So the lesson to young people is don't take a job for the money, take a job for what you're learning.
Yeah.
You know, and the harder, it was really hard because I didn't like, I'm actually a very shy person. So learning how to sell was the hardest thing I could do. But if I hadn't spent 4 years learning how to sell, I never made it here, I never made it here.
So the entire time that you were here, you were preparing to jump to the other quadrant.
Correct. So every job is not so much for the high-paying job with job security.
Yeah.
For not everybody. You know, most people should have job security because they're not designed to be entrepreneurs. But if you're going to be an entrepreneur, then you better take this job and say, well, which way am I going to go?
Yeah.
So I knew my job at Xerox was to go here and here and here,
Yeah.
not stay here. And I actually make so much money over here that I don't need job security, I
Yeah.
need the money. So really that's the lesson. When you look at a job, you look at what can I learn more than how much can I make. And I think that's the biggest challenge. And if you look for a job where you can learn a lot, the harder the job, the better it is.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
And the sad thing today is there's guys my age, old guys, who should be retired, but they can't afford to retire. So they're going back looking for a job. Last night I was talking to this Vietnamese guy. He lost his job with a telecom company. He was a computer programmer. So the saddest thing, and this guy I meet, nice guy, probably a few years younger than me, he's now working 3 jobs because in his head, I mean, he was a high-paid executive with a telecom company, and he
Yeah.
lost his job. The company's out of business. I won't mention his name.
Yeah.
But he still has go to school, get a job. It's still running his head here. Rather than say, what can I learn? And today, I mean, it's really sad. I was having coffee yesterday, and this guy comes up to me. He's about my age. He says, can I come to your company and apply for a job? I said, man, you're as old as I am. But he says, I just don't want any problems. I just want the paycheck.
John and I, like I said, rugby players, play for the Hawaii Harlequins rugby team. And I'm talking to him, and he's telling me about all the rich people we knew in Hawaii who were going broke. I'm going, you got to tell that story. Because as I said, in 1974 was the first 401k. It was called ERISA, Employee Retirement Income Security Act. And I was still in the Marine Corps, and I was flying out of Hawaii. And I went to listen to these pitches on how to sell a 401k. And I said, these guys are lying through their teeth. Because the advantage I had is I had a rich dad and I had a poor dad. And my poor dad was the village idiot. He was a PhD, which stands for poor, helpless, and desperate. He ran the school system for the state of Hawaii, and he thought the 401k was wonderful. I'm going, you got to be kidding me. And my rich dad was my best friend's father. He goes, oh my God, boy, talk about a license to steal money from stupid people called employees. So I came from a different, so this is 74, I'm still in the Marine Corps. And the first thing my rich dad said to me, if you're going to be a rich man, you better learn 2 things right now. Be an entrepreneur, but he says you've got to learn how to sell. And secondly, you've got to know real estate. Because real estate is debt and taxes. And that's, what do you mean debt and taxes? So in 1974, I took my first real estate course and opened my eyes up because you don't need money to buy real estate and you pay no taxes on top of it. So just before I get out of the Marine Corps, I get a job with Xerox to learn how to sell. So I got sales, and then I understood real estate. So why am I a rich man today? Because I took 2 courses, learn how to sell and learn about real estate. And my poor dad, the PhD, says, go back to school, get your MBA and get your PhD. I'm going, then I'd wind up like you. A poor, highly educated man with a 401k.